Right, so this video is about virtual environments in Python, and just scroll up a tiny bit. Well, here we go. Um, in Python, when I create a virtual environment, I want to use a NumPy module. If I want to use a NumPy module, do I have to install? Do I have to do a pip install of NumPy? And the whole purpose of these virtual environments is basically it creates like this segregated environment somewhere. So you've got like a virtual environment. Well, we're actually going to go through this and it'll describe it anyway. But you've got this virtual environment and everything's kind of like encapsulated in it. So all the modules that you use belong in this environment. And then if you want to create another environment somewhere else, all of the modules are in the next one as well. So you've got nothing, and they're self-contained units, so none of these environments here can interfere with the other ones. So you can have different versions. There's different versions of your modules inside each environment. So we've got environment number 1, environment number 2 down the bottom here, and environment number 3 over there, and none of them interfere with each other. So I might have had, like, I don't know, NumPy. Oops, let's get that right, but like I might have had NumPy version 2.01 or whatever the version is, and here it'll be 2 point or what, or won't be a 2, it'll be like an earlier version, maybe like 1.9, and there might not be backward compatibility between these two different versions. And if you were running everything in the same environment, when you did an upgrade here, you'd actually have to upgrade your code in this particular environment. So the virtual environment lets the developer stay with the current tested working version. Now, the reason I'm against virtual environments is I actually prefer to keep my code current, which means that I'd have to go to the headache, and there is a cost of doing this. It doesn't come for free. But in order to just keep on using the latest version of everything, so when a new version of NumPy, Pandas, whatever comes out, I will always go and take the new version. But if I had any legacy code that was built that didn't have backward compatibility, I'd be punished for it. Now, in the past, I have been punished for it. Not too many times, but a few times I've been punished for it. And like anyone who knows, and anyone who's coded, if you've gone back on your code and that, like, even like after like 2 months, let alone after a year, but if you go and look back at your code, and if the code base, even if the code base again is relatively small, it might only be like 100 lines of code, it's already difficult. So you can imagine, like, if you've got a massive piece of code and 13,000 lines of code or something like that, where that will become a problem, and then maybe you need this versioning and this virtual environment. Now, I feel that I don't need all of that, but everyone to their own, and you've got your choice. But anyway, I'm just going to go here and just take a look. So yes, when you create a new virtual environment in Python, you need to install packages like NumPy or any of the other modules. I just use NumPy as the first example. So you'd have to do a pip install NumPy, but you'd have to do it for every package that you wanted. Now, the flip side of this is, of course, that with all of these packages, I'd have to go, again, I've got these packages over here. Well, maybe I can click a double undo, triple undo. Yeah, there we go. I now have to go and install all of the packages, and I might be installing the same package multiple times. I might do a NumPy, a Pandas, matplotlib, like the common one here. Then I'll do another NumPy, Pandas, matplotlib here, and then I'll do another one over here. And they might even be different versions, but the differences between the versions and the backward compatibility the differences might be small, and the backward compatibility might already exist. So the number of changes might be like none in most cases, and that's kind of like why I tend to like just sort of like try to modify my code as I go along. So, but the other thing is now you've cost yourself, because I've got, if I imported, I don't know, 5 packages here and the same 5 packages here and the same 5 packages here, I've just cost myself memory or clutter. There you go. I've got the same packages multiple times. Now there might be a couple of different packages in each one. So, a blue here, and I don't know, like a yellow here. So there might be some different packages in them, but all of these greens are just overlaps and like double installing of everything. So it's not like I don't like virtual environments, but they come at, whilst they've got benefits, they've also got a cost that comes towards them. The benefit is that you get the isolation. So that's kind of like the benefit. If I was to write it somewhere on the side, I don't think I will do writing, but the drawback is that you get duplication. So you pick your poison is the phrase. Anyway, I wouldn't normally. Okay, you can do a pip install. I presume you can do a pip install like this. I'd normally do a pip install on separate lines. And the other thing, anyway, is aside from the virtual environments, is if I felt that I needed specific requirements, I would actually make a requirements.txt file, and have the specific modules that needed to be imported in the requirements.txt file. Now you might say that still you wouldn't get away with that if you were just using one centralized environment. So it's more like if you really needed to do that, and you'd move it onto a separate, like part of the PC or something, like isolated, and that's where the virtual environment might come in. Anyway, so my question was, does this mean, my follow-up question was, does this mean that there are multiple copies of NumPy, one for each virtual environment? And the answer here is yes, that is correct. Maybe I'll just extend this a bit so it's a bit bigger. And I'll move that there. And Control plus and that again, just to zoom in. But yeah, yes, that is correct. When you install NumPy on any virtual package when you install NumPy or any other package into a virtual environment, it will create a separate copy of that package local to just that environment. So if you have environment 1, environment 2, and environment 3, each environment, and you pip install NumPy in each one, there will be 3 distinct copies of the NumPy package, which means that it will sit somewhere. 3 distinct copies will sit somewhere on the PC, presumably in the local directory. And we will go and have a look at this, so I might even go to it now. But I did use or test out virtual environments, and here's one here, and I guess I'll zoom in a bit if I can, just so that we can see the folders. Over here, I had a test virtual environment. I created a virtual environment, and it's going to be instructions on it, and you can see that it's put some things in here. Now I've got my code in here, my underscore code. That's something that I wrote, and inside my code is the hello pi, which is this thing here. So I just tested out hello pi. But here you can see the libraries, or studying like setup tools and so forth. So that's kind of like, I wonder what even goes in the pip. Package resources, I don't know, but a whole bunch of stuff. But basically things are going into this folder as if it was like a little project, an isolated project on its own. Now that's fine, but then I'd need to be creating tons and tons of project folders like this. Now I don't often, well, sometimes I do, so sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, and it's okay if it's got something isolated. But other times, you can see down here, I've just got hundreds of files, and maybe I could have some sort of general environment there as well. But a lot of these are like duplications and testing things and so forth. So I'm testing pandas, and then I'm testing params. But I've got a test of pandas here, and I might use it in multiple other places. And if I had a virtual environment for each one, I'd have pandas pip installed all over the place into these different virtual environments. So now it would be true to say that they would be of different versions. So that's kind of like the benefit. If one of them became critical and I needed a specific version, it would be isolated and untainted, as it were. So that would, in theory, be the benefit of it. But let's just go back to the AI, which is the Claude AI. So each one has its own. So environment 1 has its own NumPy, environment 2 has a separate NumPy, and environment 3 has its own separate NumPy. This avoids conflicts or mismatches across environments. That's the purpose of the virtual environment. It also means that any changes made to the package in one environment does not affect the others. So fantastic, you can go along and sort of like do upgrading and things on all the other packages. But your age package that you just is mission critical, and you don't want to change it because it's working. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. You might have that mantra. You don't want to upgrade it. Performing an upgrade, might create some conflict somewhere. So you just kind of like want to leave it untainted. You can do that with the virtual environment. So you can upgrade NumPy environment 1 without impacting environment 2 or 3. This isolation. That's a key word here, really. This isolation and separation of dependencies. So these are the keywords: isolation, separation and dependencies is a key benefit of virtual environments. In Python and other languages have it too, at least Node does as well. The downside is it takes up more disk space to have multiple copies. Now that's my version, so you get this benefit on the one hand, but then you get this downside on the other hand. That's one downside. But disk space is generally cheap, while developer productivity and stability is important. That's true. However, I'm going to add an extra piece, which is that, generally speaking, for 90, certainly over 90% of the time, it's probably more like 99% of the time, you are pretty much always just using the standard features, and the latest version is sufficient. So also you'd have to do a pip install of everything every time, everywhere, and it would become tedious. So there's actually, although there's one downside. This downside actually comes with an upside, a flipped upside, which is that one copy. It can be used on multiple pieces of code. So you've now got your major pip installs over here. So here's all of your pips. They're somewhere in the repository, wherever they are, in whatever version of Python you're using. And these are all of your modules over here. And you didn't need to do a separate pip install for every single module, because each one of these now is looking at this. So each one of these is kind of like pointing down there. And if in one of these modules, so let's say on the last module you wanted to install something new that wasn't there before, that would go into the pip, and it would actually be available for all of these modules. Now you might not want to add anything there because they're completed bits of code, but any subsequent modules that you were to create, it would be available for them too. So all of a sudden, this extra piece that you've pip installed is now available for everything else, so long as you're not contingent on a specific version. So if you're not contingent on a specific version, it's probably better not to use virtual environments. Now, the reason I say that is I see a lot of videos and they jump straight to the virtual environment, so it becomes habitual to do it. But you are creating yourself this cost of overhead. So there's two overheads that you've created your cost of. One is the multiple pip installs, and the other one is just the convenience of actually being able to create a new module. So just create a new module and run your code. Now, if I was to go and just create a new module here, I've got something here, but let's just say I created a new file. So I'll create just like a new _ test.py like this. Get the py right. There we go. New test.py. Let me just remove all of that over there and gets on the side. But basically I can do import numpy. There we go. I can put import pandas as pd, and we notice that I never had to go down into here and do a Python -m pip install and so forth into or just pip install whatever of each one of these modules. I never had to do that. I didn't have to create a requirements.txt file, because these ones are just looking up the official modules, and in fact I can sort of navigate to it even because I can go to definition, and it literally exists here in my users admin app data local programs Python 3.12 library site packages numpy. That's where it exists. It's there. And likewise, if I go to the pandas, it's going to exist. So go to definition. You can notice here that it's going to the same path, another init.py, and there's pandas. So it goes to admin app data local programs Python 3.12, because that's the version I'm currently running. Lib site packages instead of numpy. Now it's pandas. So, and you can sort of we can actually see all of the modules as well. So you're kind of pointing to a centralized repository, and that's quite nice, convenient, and fast to use. So there's a huge case for not using virtual environments anyway. So multiple copies across environments is considered, well, it's considered a good trade-off in most cases. I'm going to argue against that. It's considered a good trade-off in certain cases, and I'm actually going to say most is certainly incorrect. I'm going to say it's considered a good trade-off in a few specific cases. In summary, each virtual environment has its own distinct copy of installed packages. The isolation helps dependency issues between environments. That's the gain. This isolation helps avoiding dependency issue between environments. However, it takes more disk space, and also, as we saw, it's actually this clutter here. I'm going to call it clutter because while you've got your own distinct copy, that's now clutter. And I don't want, like, not I, we don't want clutter just in general. So I moved on anyway, just for this, and I think I went on. I went to Google Bar this time rather than Claude AI, and how do you start a virtual environment? How do you start a virtual environment in Windows for Python? And it's pip install version, Python my pip install pip. Well, we've got all of that. That will come when it's shipped with Python. But then you'd have to do pip install virtual environment, and then you'd have to run a command line code. This is the other thing about virtual environments. You've got to fire them up. You've got to do a virtual environment and then like whatever the name of your virtual environment. And this will create a virtual environment called my-venv, which is kind of like commonplace, my virtual environment. And it's going to place that virtual environment in the current directory, and it's going to plonk all of your stuff there. And then you've got to activate your virtual environment. You've got to do to activate the virtual environment, run the following commands. You've got to do my-venv /scripts /activate, right? And if I do navigate over to the virtual environment, so somewhere here, test it. I guess, well, my scripts are here. There we go, back to and there's an activate.bat and a couple of other things. And you can see that I've done this on Python version 3.9. So that's what this was. I only see that because it says pip 3.9.exe. But I guess that's the activation of it. Now, that's a tiny bit annoying because I've got to do, a few different commands even to get to that, to set up the virtual environment. And then at some point, maybe then I'd have to do the pip install of my package name. So we can see now there's a lot of command line interactions that we have to do. We would have to create the environment, then activate the environment, then do the pip install of the packages inside that environment. And finally, when we've done our code, done all the stuff we needed to do, you might want to go and deactivate the environment to navigate to another environment. Now, that starts being quite a mouthful. It's a mouthful just saying it, let alone actually doing it. And I might do it on a separate video, but it's certainly a mouthful just saying it. So I wouldn't want to go that way. Now, I have seen something that pops along. It says you can use a virtual environment wrapper to manage your virtual environments more easily. Now that would make it more palatable, because if I could press a button and kind of like at least get sort of like this done and or this done and this done in one go, and well, I'd have to live with the fact that you'd have to install these, but at least like get those two done. Maybe it'd make it a bit more palatable. Then you've got to remember to do the deactivate still anyway. And I kind of like, what is a virtual environment wrapper? And maybe there is some sort of package. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to trust this medium.com website. The reason why is because sometimes they're partly useful. But yeah, it seems like a bit of a process anyway. So until virtual environments become a lot easier, and I'm using VS Code, which is kind of like the leading editor. Until virtual environments come a lot easier, I'm pretty much, although I understand what they're for and you can see the benefits of what they're for, I tend to stay away from them, and you'll probably notice that in the code that I write. So that's basically virtual environments in Python. This time it's a thumbs down for virtual environments. So quite often I've got thumbs up for packages, so thumbs down for virtual environments. I just prefer the standard environment and always upgrading wherever I can and staying modern. So it's a thumb down there. But anyway, if you like this video, it's a thumbs up for the video, and hit the follow button, the like button, thumbs up button, and all the rest of the buttons. And even if you didn't like this video, or if, by the way, even if you didn't like this video, hit the thumbs up button, like button, and follow button. But more importantly, you might be an avid fan of the virtual environment and always use it and find it really, really convenient. If you've got comments on it or want to put your comments in there, it will be useful to hear the feedback on virtual environments in Python. So that's it.